morning, everyone. He's a bit taller than me, so I have to adjust this. Yeah. Good morning. It was a very interesting panel conversation that we just listened to, and I think I felt a billion butterflies in my tummy when I heard regulators, the supposedly dreaded regulators, talking about the typical problems faced by fintech companies. I'll be talking about one of such problems, but it's best to look at these problems by analyzing a typical customer that we have worked with. And let's see what is traditional, what is digitized, and what is the best way to look at most of our problems going forward. The panelists mentioned some of these problems, from KYC to AML to fraud protection. All of this is to ensure you create assurance to the ecosystems of consumers, regulators, and investors. All right, let me get quickly into it. Right, so the typical payment companies' challenges, quite a number of them, but we can quickly take a look at a few. For transfer fraud, churn rate is high, and personalization is a key thing. So if you want to differentiate as a fintech company, you want to personalize the customer experience. You want to prevent a high churn rate, and you want to understand what's causing churn. And above all, you want to protect the investor's money. You want to detect and protect funds transfer fraud. All right, so typically, I'll be talking about specifically this, about that guy there. That guy grows in sophistication, just as your businesses grow, just as the regulators grow in their policies. That guy also grows in its sophistication. Not just in its sophistication, they grow in numbers. So it becomes very important to look at this. But we'll look at this by taking a look at how traditionally the ecosystem looks and treats these people, and what solution we've got. Now, the good growth is to have your transactions, and this is the typical situation with the company in our case study. Transaction volume has grown 100%. But the bad growth also is that the fraud rate has gone up to 30%. And this is typical. I'm sure you can relate with this situation. The good growth is accompanied by the bad growth. The good growth we want, the bad growth we don't want. So a good way to quickly look at this is to look at how do we mitigate fraud risk. And I'm sure this is really important to everyone in the room. Whatever your fintech solution is, you will keep your eyes on mitigating fraud risk. The investors are particularly interested in this. The regulators are equally interested in this. We saw how many times Kwame and Bertrand mentioned the need to create assurance for to protect the consumers and to create assurance for the ecosystem. So there are good reasons. One, you don't want to lose money. And secondly, you want to protect your brand. And there's a need to protect this. OK, so let's take a look at the various ways, traditional ways, the industry, the ecosystem has been looking at mitigating risk. First and foremost, most of the time, we wait for the consumer to reach out to us. My money has just been stolen. Oh, there's a transfer from my account. I wasn't aware. It wasn't me. So we wait traditionally, we wait for the customers to complain, but the money is gone. So this way, it's not been totally successful. Okay? The recovery rate has been below 2%. More than 90% of the funds are gone. This is a traditional way. Customer calls. We wait for the customers to call. The incumbents, most of the incumbents in the financial sectors or financial services sector adopt this methodology. There's a huge customer service room, the fraud desk, okay, waiting for customers to complain about fraud on their various accounts. It's not totally successful. The second method is, well, the more sophisticated organizations and fintech companies and financial services companies, they've created business rules based on experience. So you have heads in the team who have been working for the organization for some time and who have seen quite a number of fraud and fraud patterns. Then you begin to create your business rules. A good example would be whenever there's when a transaction that is layered in the middle of the night, it's likely to be a fraud. Stop it, okay? The second one is look at the amount. When the amount is somewhat an outlier, completely different from what the customer would ordinarily transfer, it's a fraud. It's likely to be a fraud. Stop it, okay? And the third one is, well, maybe the channel. Is it on the mobile app or USSD or web or a card? So you begin to build business rules around these patterns. Yeah, I've done quite some, made some progress, but it's not exactly hitting it. Okay? So, largely speaking, the success rate on this has been below 8%. Okay? Recovery rate. So, it's still not doing it. And the major problem with this method is that the number or the percentage of false positives is huge. And what does that translate into? Customer is so dissatisfied, you're stopping the transaction because you thought it was a fraud. And then you have to go through a whole lot of explanation of you protecting the customer. That's what happened. But the customers aren't happy. And you're not really hitting their goal. It's still very poor. That's the second method. Now, the more sophisticated organizations are rethinking it. They're saying this is a machine learning problem. And you give them a round of applause for thinking the right way. We need to build machine learning models that can stop fraud. And historically, I'm sure you know, a well-curated machine learning model could be as effective as stopping close to 90% of the fraud from experience, real-world experience. Now, look at what I said. A well-curated machine learning model. That's a load of things there. What does it take to build such? How many fintech companies out there have the capacity to build such? Let's see what the company in our case study experienced when they tried to build a machine learning service. One, it's complex. Yeah, really complex. It's not for small boys. The developers in the room can testify to that. It's not for mere mortals to build such complex machine learning models that will stop close to 90% of the fraud. Not just stop, to detect and take action. The second one, extremely expensive. So the folks that will build such for you are expensive. They don't come so cheap. And it takes a whole lot of time to build. Then you struggle with overfitting, underfitting, features engineering. Because let me tell you from experience, the features, the parameters that determine fraud, they can be close to 130 data points, 150 data points. It's huge. No human brain can weave all of these features together in a business rules to create an effective machine learning solution that will detect fraud. Then you need huge compute services. Okay, so there are quite a number of problems, or challenges. We can see the problem, we can see the solution. The solution is an effective, well-curated machine learning models. But we can see what challenges stand between us and building a well-curated machine learning models. Then we worked with this company. Now, AWS has well over 200 services. We realized that the most sophisticated companies around are barely using close to 5% of those services. So we see organizations still building stuff out for what has been. In fact, let me put it this way. A lot of us are still reinventing the wheels. The wheels have been built. They've been tested, but we still keep reinventing the wheels. It costs us time, it costs us money, and we're barely scratching the surface. So one of such services is Amazon Fraud Detector. We work with this firm to integrate Amazon Fraud Detector. It didn't take so long. It didn't take so much effort. And one beautiful thing about it, I think I'm jumping the gun. There's a slide that talks about why Amazon Fraud Detector became the real solution for this organization. Cram the problems. Complex to build, takes time, expensive, huge compute resources, and you have quite a whole lot of machine learning concepts to deal with, from overfitting to underfitting to selecting the right features, and so on and so forth. Okay, so with Amazon Fraud Detector, we were able to work with this firm, and today they're stopping close to 87% of the fraud. They're able to detect and stop 87%, which are true positives, okay, or true negatives. So, and this is still growing, this is still improving, this is still learning, and we believe at some point, we believe strongly, working with other firms as well, this firm should be able to stop close to 95%, or detect close to 95% of online transfer fraud. This is a major, major progress, considering the fact that it was done in no time. It's fully managed, on-demand pricing, you know, and it's real time. And one beautiful thing also is that you can build rule-based actions, meaning you can build an action on top of the machine learning model, specifying exactly what should be done. When I find a fraud, call the customer. When I find a fraud, email the customer. When you find a fraud, stop it. It depends on your use case. You can build rule-based actions on top of 87% fraud detection. You can see the beauty of this. They did not have to hire heads. They did not have to hire complex programmers. They did not have to go through a whole lot of machine learning concepts. It didn't take so much time. Just barely training, building, and deploying in no time. This was the experience of the customer in this use case. Okay, so the Amazon Fraud Detector has quite a number of features, not just online fraud detector, quite a number. I want to quickly mention a few before I stop. Online identity. Kwame and Bertrand spoke about this as one of the major things they're looking at to make sure the policy, a lot of policies around this of the central bank, to make sure you provide assurance to the user, to the consumer. Online identity, from online identity to new accounts, fraud, online payment fraud, funds transfer fraud, and so on and so forth. But what does it take, to be honest? It takes barely nothing. So we came up with what the new fraud risk equation is. Your data, you use your data to train, build, and deploy without writing a single line of code, without deploying any bit of resource, and without spending so much time doing this. So the new fraud risk equation says your data plus Amazon Fraud Detector equals some 87% fraud detection. Thank you very much.